All right, we're live.
Hello. Hello, and welcome to the 2021 Forge Prize finalists live presentations. Alex Morales of the American Institute of Steel Construction will be your moderator for today's event. For the audience joining us remotely, the Forge Prize was established by AISC to support and recognize the work of emerging architects who explore imaginative ways of designing with structural steel. Over the past year, the 3 finalists that you are about to meet have worked with expert minds in the fields of steel fabrication, design, and construction to bring you provocative visions in steel for our buildings of the future. These finalists have also already received $5,000 each as part of being selected during Phase 1 of the competition. Today, they will reveal their improved proposals for a chance to win an additional $10,000 and be recognized as the 2021 Forge Prize recipient. As a reminder, at the end of the presentation, the audience will have a chance to vote for their favorite design, so we encourage you to vote for your favorite candidate. Helping us make the final selection for second runner-up, first runner-up, and the grand prize winner will be our jury of esteemed judges. They will deliberate at the conclusion of today's event to select the best design and declare the 2021 Forge Prize recipient. Before we begin, we'd like to formally recognize the people and partnerships that have worked with our designers to make this possible. Our jury: Pascal Sablon of Adje Associates Architects. With over 13 years of experience, Pascal has been on the design team for a variety of mixed-use, commercial, cultural, and residential projects around the world. Pascal is the 315th living African-American female architect in the United States to attain her architectural license. Pascal has given lectures in many prestigious institutions, including the National Museum of African American Heritage and Culture, the United Nations Visitors Center, and Columbia University. She is the founder and executive director of Beyond the Built Environment, LLC, and has curated Say It Loud exhibitions at the AIA New York Center for Architecture, South by Southwest Conference 2019, A19, NOMA 2018 Unbounded Conference, and the United Nations Visitors Center. Pascal has won numerous awards, including the 2018 Pratt Alumni Achievement Award, Emerging New York Architect Merit Award, NOMA Prize for Excellence in Design, and 2018 American Institute of Architects Young Architects Award. She was also recognized on the Building Design and Construction 40 Under 40 list and was featured on the cover of its September 2017 issue. In 2021, Pascal was elevated as a Fellow, FAIA, by the College of Fellows of the American Institute of Architects. Bob Borson, Boca Powell. Bob Borson is widely recognized as the blogger behind Life of an Architect, one of the world's most popular architectural blogs. As an established voice within the architectural community, he has bridged the gap and engaged multiple generations of architects and architectural enthusiasts by sharing his personal experiences, professional practice tips, and anecdotes on what it's like to work with and be an architect. Bob was recognized by the Dallas AIA as Young Architect of the Year in 2009, received the Award for Excellence in the Promotion of Architecture through the Media from the Texas Society of Architects in 2015, and was elevated to the American Institute of Architects College Fellows in 2017. Currently, Bob is an associate principal with the award-winning firm Boca Powell in Dallas, Texas. And Robert Cassidy. Robert Cassidy, executive editor of Building Design and Construction and editor of Multifamily Design and Construction, served as editorial director of BD&C from 2002 to 2014. He holds a bachelor's from the College of the Holy Cross and a master's in urban studies from Yale. He was a city planner in Providence, Rhode Island and Arlington, Virginia, and was editor of Planning Magazine, the publication of the American Planning Association. In 1979, he co-founded the Friends of the Chicago River and served as its chair from 1979 to 1982. Among his books are Livable Cities, A Grassroots Guide to Rebuilding Urban America, and Margaret Mead, A Voice for the Century. In 2016, he was awarded the G.D. Crane Jr. Award for Lifetime Editorial Achievement from Connective, the Business Information Association serving the business-to-business media sector. Our industry partners and fabricator mentors: Jeff Pate of Owen Steel, Kimberly Robinson of Sun Steel LLC, and Glenn Tabolt of STS Steel. We will now have a quick word from our mentor fabricators on their experience working with the designers, beginning with Jeff Pate of Owen Steel.
Hello, I'm Jeff Pate, Vice President of Sales for Owen Steel Company, an AISC fabricator member for over 80 years. 40 years ago, Owen became the first woman-owned and led major AISC fabricator, and the tradition continues today under the leadership of our CEO, Juanita Leslie. I am honored to serve as the fabricator advisor to another smart, hardworking woman, June Wang. June has created an amazing design utilizing the modern aspect of a steel structure, yet blending shape and function into the environment beautifully. As an engineer and fabricator, I don't often have the opportunity to influence an architect or collaborate in this way. Her willingness to incorporate our practical constructability suggestions and put in long hours and hard work was very impressive and obvious in the results. Not only is her design aesthetically pleasing and would be an iconic feature in any landscaping, but it is actually something that could be economically fabricated and built. We at Owen Steel are proud of June's entry and confident she has a winning design. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff. Kimberly.
Yes, I'm Kim Robinson, and I am with the Fab South group of companies. That's 8 companies that are located mostly in the southeast quadrant of the United States, and Sun Steel is located out in Washington. We've been working with Yiming Tang, and her design is quite astounding. It is an excellent expression of steel, which I actually love, and yes, you will be very impressed by the expression that she has in steel and how she has formed it. I mean, it is new and it is fresh and it's outstanding. So enjoy her presentation.
Wonderful. And finally, we've got Glenn Tabolt.
Good morning. Hi, my name is Glenn Tabolt. I'm co-founder and CEO of STS Steel. We're a AISC member fabricator in Schenectady, New York, which is near Albany. We're an AISC certified to fabricate advanced bridges, buildings, hydraulic structures with endorsements for fracture critical and sophisticated coatings. Over the last 37 years since our founding, we've fabricated some unique and interesting projects. But the projects we've enjoyed most involve finding solutions to challenges created by architects' innovative use of steel. I'd like to thank AISC for sponsoring the prize, as well as Alex Morales for all the hard work he did bringing us together. I believe this is an investment in innovation and collaboration that will improve our built environment. It was really a pleasure working with Hunter. I enjoyed getting to know him and learning how his experiences inspired his design. I was not that familiar with the use of 3D printing in such a large structure, but the more I worked with Hunter and understood the technology, the more enthusiastic I became about his design. I was very impressed with the amount of work that he put into it. And I liked the fact that he was highly innovative, but also sought ideas that made the design practical, technically feasible, and faster to fabricate and erect. Although the project is conceptual and innovative, I felt like we were collaborating on a real project. We considered real challenges that needed solutions. I look forward to seeing all the presentations. I'm sure we will be hearing more from these talented group of individuals as they continue to find new ways to design with steel.
Good deal. So a big shout out, a big thank you to our mentor fabricators and of course our stellar jury. We're going to get right into the presentations. So let's go ahead. If there's a glitch that happens in the middle of our pandemic way of connecting with each other, just be assured that we do have my colleague Larry Flynn who's to help carry the event forward. So with that, let's go ahead and get started with the presentations. Let me share my screen. Let's continue and introduce our wonderful having a glitch already. Please bear with me.
And finally, our 2021 Forge Prize scholars, who will be presenting in this order: Hunter Ruthroff of T.Y. Lin International, Jun Yang of Habitat Workshop, and Yiming Tang of VMDO Architects. We encourage you to visit www.theforgeprize.org to learn more about our scholars, jury, and industry collaborators. As a reminder, at the end of the presentations, we will launch a live poll where we encourage our YouTube audience to click and vote for their favorite design. Our jury will take this into consideration, but ultimately it is at their discretion to select the second runner-up, first runner-up, and finally, the official recipient of the 2021 Forge Prize. We will receive this news at the conclusion of today's event. And now, kicking off the 2021 Forge Prize live presentations, we turn this over to Hunter Ruthroff of T.Y. Lin International. Good luck to all of our finalists.
Okay, Hunter, good luck. We'll go ahead and switch screen share. And so if you would on your end, get ready. And when you're ready, we're going to have 20 minutes per scholar. We will do our best to moderate at the 20-minute intervals and give you a 5-minute warning. So good luck with the presentations.
All right, I'm ready. Oh, sorry. Apologies, wrong one. There we go. Okay. Hi there, everyone. My name is Hunter Ruthroff. I'm a bridge designer for T.Y. Lin International, based out of San Diego. For my proposal, I focused on a pedestrian bridge that crosses Florida Canyon in San Diego. And so to give you some context, Balboa Park is just north of downtown San Diego. Florida Canyon is nestled just off of center in the northern part of the park. The canyon actually represents the eastern boundary of what we call the Prado. The Prado is, of course, our historic spine, which features museums, shops, restaurants, the Plaza de Panama. And it starts in the west, just past 6th Avenue. It crosses over the 163 via the Cabrillo Bridge, which will become an important part of the inspiration. And then it ends right here at this fountain, which is just next to Park Boulevard. On the other side of Park Boulevard is a rose garden, and this represents the western entrance of the bridge as it crosses over Zoo Place, over Florida Drive, and connects into the eastern rim of the canyon, which is the border of the Arizona landfill. There's a few reasons for a bridge at this location. The first is to facilitate an east-west connection, which is largely non-existent in the park. The second is to really spur development in the Arizona landfill. It's remained basically dormant for many years and is in very much need of kind of a redevelopment, which I think can really be spurred by a footbridge. In fact, our master plan for San Diego really shows a footbridge at this location. And so, as I mentioned before, the Cabrillo Bridge was a big source of inspiration, built in 1919 for the Panama, California Expo. It's a cast in place below deck arch, and it has a great experience on top because it's completely open with all the structure tucked below. Creates a great experience, open views to the museums as well as downtown. And then below, it functions as a gateway in and out of the city when you're driving the 163. The below image there that you see is the forming process of this bridge. It's said that there was 1 million board feet used in the formwork for this structure. And my proposal specifically seeks to eliminate formwork, push the boundaries formally for structural steel, and minimize the touchdown points, temporary or permanent, to the canyon ecosystem below. And so there are many sources of inspiration for my design. One of them was the Cabrillo Bridge, and then it was kind of the Spanish, high degree of Spanish ornament that we see in our museums, from the Museum of Man and various other ones. Really just kind of an incredible amount of relief, shadow, and light play on those surfaces that I really wanted to capture in the surface articulation of my design. The second is the flora. There's a cactus garden that's quite large on the western rim, just next to the west entrance, and it features a lot of really beautiful flora, specifically this particular cactus, as well as the dragon tree, which has this really kind of beautiful bifurcation in the structure that leads down to the trunk. And then we also have, oddly enough, scattered throughout the park, massive old fig trees, and they have this wonderful buttressing kind of root system that's very fluid. And this concept of fluidity is something that permeates through my design, as we'll see. And of course, the canyon itself was a source of inspiration. You know, on the left there, we can see kind of this network of trails caused by pedestrians, but also mountain bikers. It really kind of has like a cellular kind of network to it in its overall layout. But also the process of erosion, which is what created the canyon in the first place. You can kind of see on the right there some of those fluid forms which are caused by water flowing over those surfaces. And so I think a good way to kind of summarize how the architectural concept came about was thinking about these three components being mashed up to drive the architectural design. So, you know, the Cabrillo Bridge kind of set the tone for the experience and structure, meaning that the structure will be below deck. The upper side will be completely open to the views of the canyon and also to the bay beyond. And then the thought was to use the cellular network to really drive the global architecture and the structure. Kind of that smooth articulation would be used in that architectural design. And then finally, the idea of kind of modernizing that Spanish colonial ornament and using it to drive the surface articulation. But rather than kind of the literal relief that we see in that type of architecture, we'd be using the fluid forms and shapes that we see throughout the park. And so here's the layout of the bridge. So we see in the upper left in the plan that end fountain at the end of the Prado. There's an at-grade crossing over Park Boulevard, a plaza, and then there's a series of 4 expansions and contractions in the deck. And what I would point out are these 4 apertures that are in the deck. It's a very unique kind of feature, because it allows people that are walking by to kind of look into the aperture and always be connected to the canyon below. Over these apertures are actually a series of hammocks. So for those brave enough, you can actually venture over and kind of bounce along and just kind of hang out in that hammock, again, getting kind of a great experience to the canyon below. There's also vegetation throughout the bridge. The idea being that the bridge should feel, yes, an extension of the Prado, but also an extension of the park, where it's kind of blurring boundaries on where the park begins and where the bridge ends. And so the layout of the bridge is 3 250-foot spans. There's a 3% slope up from the west or east rim to the west rim towards the Prado. You can see below we cross over Zoo Place as well as Florida Drive, and there are numerous trails that pass underneath the bridge, which give you great vantage points to view it. And so here's my first rendering. We're standing on the east rim looking northwest. We can kind of see that kind of cellular network that I spoke about. Also reminiscent, when you're standing here, that silhouette kind of matches up with some of those trail alignments, and it matches with those two kind of geometries. I think it would be even more visible during the dry season. Here we can see we're on Florida Canyon looking north. You see Florida Drive kind of continuing north there, and then Zoo Place kind of makes a left. And then, I know we were kind of seeing some faint articulation on the bridge. Here's a close-up view that kind of illustrates what kind of articulation we're talking about. And so before we were kind of talking about fluid forms and the process of erosion and creating that canyon. And that's really what I tapped into for the surface articulation of this structure. Using a water flow analysis, I was able to trace particles down the structure to the very base of the column. The whole idea being that it looks like there's a part of the canyon that's emerging onto the structure itself and climbing up, kind of connecting the upper reaches of the bridge with the bottom. And then we see kind of spherical articulations on the structure, which kind of point out their end or even origin points, as the case may be. So here's a view from on the deck, what that experience would be like. The upper left is below the structure, looking through the involutions to the hammocks. The upper right is a view at the entrance on one of those hammocks, and you can see how really connected visually the user is with the canyon below, despite the bridge. And then this aerial kind of focus on the two splitting paths, which are each 10 feet wide. And then we see that aperture and hammock, and then just between the aperture and the planters, we can see pieces of artwork, which are really meant to be public domain, where artists can come in and kind of do their thing, whether it be paint or graffiti or whatever it might be. Another view as if we were hanging out on the hammock in the upper left here. The view just below, as if you were looking past it to the sky above. And then another view on the deck here, looking toward the Prado. We can see another opportunity for artwork on the ground plane there. And the railing system has got a short amount of 3D printed stainless steel, but then it also has a glass railing system so as to not block views out. One of the things I was asked to kind of focus on after round one was the lighting system and how this would enhance the structure and kind of tie back to the community. And so there's two ways that I chose to focus on this. The first is these luminous strips that are tucked into the barrier. They read like lines of light or ribbons of light that really focus on connecting the two rims of the canyon, but also providing functional light onto the deck. And the second is those spherical articulations that we saw in the other rendering are actually luminaires. The idea being that when you're in the canyon at night, you'd be able to look up past the structure, and because of the kind of sporadic locations of those lights, it really looks like a constellation where the silhouette of the bridge kind of drops back, and those become really the focal point during night. Here's another view. The upper one is looking on the eastern rim, looking southwest. You can see the Coronado Bay Bridge in the background there. We're using kind of a lighter kind of color in the light. But of course, with today's technology, programmable LEDs, there's some really interesting effects that we can achieve with lighting. And so this particular design looks at illuminating the arch member in red and then the yellow illumination of the soffit above. So with that, I'll play you an animation just to give you a better idea of the experience. And so the next two videos I'm going to show you really focus on the process of modeling these forms, that smooth articulation. So this video is showing a technique called mesh relaxation, where we take very typical members and then induce tension into the system to smooth them out, which is to say that the arch began, or that the total structural system began very simple and then used that technique to smooth everything out. The second process, where I described kind of tracing the water down the surface, began with a water flow analysis. So you can think of that as kind of an even distribution of points or particles that you're able to simulate their flow down to the lowest point, and then kind of take that line and use it for my articulation of those kind of beads that you see running up the surface. So I can switch back to my presentation for a moment. We all know that those kinds of spline-like geometries are very hard to pull off and define and get onto a 2D plan set, right? It's nothing but splines, and so it's very difficult. We also know that steel does not want to take on doubly curved shapes, right? So enter 3D printing. Using wire arc additive manufacturing, first invented by MX3D in the Netherlands, we're able to achieve very complex shapes and push the boundaries of architectural design, particularly in stainless steel, or particularly in steel, I should say. And so what we're seeing here is their canal bridge in Amsterdam being printed in the upper left, another kind of smooth component for another project, which has very similar features to my proposal. And then the final bridge on the bottom right here before it's put into place in the canal. And I would say that this particular bridge is about the scale and size of the components that would be used in my bridge. And so if we take a closer look at what we mean by components, what I mean is that the whole bridge is going to be pieced together in small parts, lifted by crane and then bolted. So if we look at these two, this upper right one is a spandrel component, and the bottom is an arch component. And there's a three-dimensional section which is cutting through both. What I would point out here is this kind of diagrid of stiffeners on the inside. Each one of those is 1 inch wide, 6 inches deep. There's an outer shell, which is 2 inches. And then what we're pointing out here is that each component at its ends or its caps has flanges that are bolted together. And so we can see kind of the bolts on the inner part there. Of course, since they're bolted together, there would need to be access inside so you don't see the hardware. So each component has its own porthole. We can see the luminaire there, as well as some of the surface articulation. A closer up view reveals what the true section looks like. So it features a carbon steel core with stainless around each external surface. The idea being that stainless is very expensive. And so printing the entire thing out of it would really drive the cost up. But because we're 3D printing it, we can localize the robot to print just on the outside stainless and the inside carbon, kind of a benefit of the fabrication technology. And so in my first round, I kind of showed a drawing that indicated how we would build this. And the feedback was, well, let's go see let's actually do it. And so I built a 3D printed physical model to illustrate the point. And so we're using balanced cantilever segmental construction here. And so what happens is we set up our foundations and abutments. We get to our east pier to kind of bring up the elevation before we put in the two major piers. After the two major piers are in place, we set up temporary stay towers over the piers and the abutments. And then we build outward such that those components that are connected in are each supported by a cable stay to get rid of the false work system below. So we keep adding arch components until we get to the keystone segment. So the middle one goes in here. The two outer keystone segments get put in. And then finally, we have stability in the arch. At that point, we can get rid of the stay towers and really focus on building up to the deck. And so after we've got stability in the arch, this final kind of phase looks at adding spandrels. Then finally, the first deck segments, which of course have seats, and then the absolute final, and we have a complete bridge. Each component has all of its three-dimensional qualities intact, and we didn't use any false work. So I'll just touch very briefly on some of the benefits of 3D printed structural steel. The follow to factory delivery method is truly efficient. We're kind of eliminating / blending the designer's role in delivering a shop drawing. And we didn't have to define any of that geometry in 2D, which really is a big time saver. 3D printed structural steel simplifies engineering and enhances architectural design. As we can see with the surface articulation, the double curvature, it's meant for this kind of thing and brings steel to a new level that wasn't feasible before. When I say it simplifies engineering, I'm really comparing that to, say, concrete 3D printed steel, which you still have to figure out how to get tendons and reinforcement in there, and whether it's a stay in place form, et cetera. I think it brings it back to a moment where, like, we were in university and we're thinking about it, that section as post-shade space. Because of the strength, the ductility, the tensile quality of steel, it's the perfect material for that. Fabrication speed is a function of robot, which is to say 3D printing is slow, but the more robots you add, the quicker you can go. And for construction, the idea of putting a temporary on-site facility on the Arizona landfill, since it's just open space, allows us to increase the construction speed and increase the size of components. Because we're not limited to the roadway or the truck width that would be bringing that component from a factory into place, it leads to a much more efficient and quicker construction process.
Well, time.
With that, I thank you.
Right on time. So turn it over to our jury for a commentary. I guess we'll begin with Pascal, please.
Hello, Hunter. Thank you again for another great presentation. Always a pleasure to learn about your expertise in the matter, which is always evident as you present, as well as your passion. I really appreciate that you cited a lot of this inspirations on the project to be contextual and bespoke, which I always think is pretty cool. I also appreciated your surface articulation this time. The animation at the end definitely did help me understand what you meant in terms of the fluid mapping, and then understanding how the lighting components were embedded within them. And I really love the idea of the, like, under the bridge looking up in terms of the constellation kind of idea of it. I don't know how that works with bird safe and like how that's understand with nature, but I think it's really powerful that you explored and kind of articulated or leveraged the articulation of the surface as a way of creating a strategy for the lighting. I also appreciated the way that you created the lighting process for those who are on the bridge itself. The one thing that I will say that I think we talked about a little bit before that I'm not sure is addressed, I really love the apertures. And I know you have, each aperture seems to be doing the same thing, the hammock. And I want to emphasize again the importance of accessibility and mobility and some of those challenges that is part of that. So it would be interesting to see and explore the idea, because, you know, design is never done, right? Where some of those apertures might have been a different kind of transparent surface where someone on a wheelchair or in crutches would be able to explore and have that visual connection down below, while still having those moments of the hammock for the other kind of experiences. I just want to make sure that when we're creating unique experiences, that we try to create as much accessibility for all the diversity in our communities to be able to enjoy and leverage that. So with that, I would say that it was probably the largest kind of issue that I had with the design, but really appreciated the integration of nature, landscaping, a pedestrian, lighting, and all the kind of really important fabrication things that you've learned in your collaboration with your mentor there, and how the project progressed since we first saw it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bob.
Hey, Hunter. It's good to see you again.
Hey, Bob.
You know, I really enjoyed your project, and I like to see how it's evolved. And I thought one of the strengths of your presentation, not only the first time but today, is the amount of kind of refinement that you brought to the entire process. The research that you put in as kind of setting the table for your design concept that ultimately fed into your final solution is something that really resonated with me. I found your presentation extremely engaging, And I appreciated these kind of micro goals you had, such as reducing the amount of formwork, the sustainability considerations that your project brings to the table. And one of the things that I think that is part of the Forge Prize, and one of the major considerations that I think that you really excelled in, was the advancement of forward-thinking fabrication techniques. Um, it's something that I don't think can be understated, in that, of course, we're in your wheelhouse. This is kind of what you do. And um, the idea that you brought considerations to not only how do we build it without formwork, and how can we put it together into segments, and how do we assemble it in the field, but also how does the surface get treated? How does water move across that space? What happens below the bridge? What happens above the bridge? Um, there was a layer of problem solving that you brought to your solution that is actually reflected in the final product. And as a designer, that's something that I commend you on. I think that there's a handful of items that, if this actually became a real built product, you'd still continue to, I have no doubt that you would continue to evolve it and explore those items. It's a complicated project, it's a complicated solution, but one that's ultimately satisfying in the refinement of what you've put together. So congratulations, job well done.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Bob. And Robert.
One, excellent presentation. Well done, Hunter. Nicely articulated, very professional. That alone is worth your effort here in this competition. I can see you going very far in your career just based on that. Second, I'm a little creeped out by the apertures. They're a little scary to me. I doubt, I don't know what CDOT is going to do in letting them through, but you know, but I praise you for doing it, and if we can make it work, it's really good. I do second Pascal's comment about, yeah, let's make one of them a surface where people in wheelchairs, people with crutches, whatever, can explore and use that, get the whole visual experiment. There's a political angle to this bridge, and that is that, you know, we've heard, you know, will there actually be an infrastructure effort here? And, you know, Biden is, and I don't want to get political here, but there is, you know, this is the kind of project that can get widespread support. And I could see 10, 12 fabrication plants around the country doing this kind of thing, knocking down the terrible bridges that what do we have? Thousands of bad bridges in this country. Take them down and replace them with models along this line. So I think the feasibility and the 3D printing aspect is just terrific, and very, very exciting to me. And I really think it can work. So those are my comments, and it's beautiful looking too.
Thank you, Robert.
Thank you. So with that, we're going to ask Hunter to release control of the presentation, and we'll move on straight to our presenter. Okay, June, whenever you're ready, you can take it away.
Great. Thank you, Alex. And thank you for this opportunity to speak about Signal Park, located in San Jose, California, that was really conceived as an urban design and park for the community. First, want to discuss a few of the project goals coming out of the first phase of the submissions. Signal Park is a cluster of urban villages created by overlapping topographical mounds that reflect the vista of the surrounding natural landscape. It's situated in about 4.5 acres of land, and it's bound by St. John Street, Santa Clara Street, and North Autumn Street. and also bound by the highway that you see on the north side of the tennis courts. It's really multiple program layers that are centered around the ring, and these rings that interlock and connect, that one could be all the paths are accessible by the connecting pathways, that elevated pathways that connect these different rings. So given the vast amount of the site and the elements within the site, what the project focused on for the phase 2 was to tackle the biggest ring, thinking that it would be a modular structure that could be scaled up and down and be populated throughout the entire site. Few of the main goals that we wanted to carry through in phase 2 studies, the first one was to thinking about the nature and really maintaining the form of the project, reflecting back on the nature and thinking of it as a habitable icon for San Jose. Initially, the project was conceived with post, truss, and rings that cover these vistas. And these are the structural members. So really wanting to make sure that there's a viability in constructability and also fabrication that could be easily constructed and transported. And also maintaining that each program that becomes a nodal point, and also making sure that these elements can be connected via pathways and thinking about the materiality of these elements. Another example of the use is the over and under conditions. So some of these things, as they are overlapped, that you begin to inhabit the upper deck and also the lower deck. One of the comments earlier on was about this issue of accessibility and safety issue of what is accessible area versus non-accessible area. So we wanted to focus a little bit more and clarifying that the boundary in phase 2. Wanted to talk a little bit more about the background and the inspirations. So here we see 2 examples, Bill Spatial and Little Island in New York, that really deals with this modular idea, modular structure that can be gathered together to create a public space that can be shared by everyone. Also, in thinking about steel as a way to sculpt form, something that elevates us, something that lifts us up, and doesn't become this idea of a dingy underside that can be inhabited. These are initial sculpting strategies that really was born out of the idea of the grid overlay on site and finding the nodal points that begin to create radiating clusters. And it became a distinct form also in the first phase, and wanted to explore the viability of this and see if anything could be changed for phase 2. So as we move forward, we'll show a little bit more about the materials, modules, and connections, really trying to work out a system that can be a little bit clearer in terms of the constructability and modularity of the structure. So the first step that I worked with Jeff was really figuring out what's the basis of modularity. So here, the radiating ring is divided into 24 equal 15-degree divisions, and also this idea of the offset, the radial offset at 3 feet. And the largest ring on site is at maximum 102 feet. And these are some of the initial steps that we're thinking in terms of how to make this each chunk viable and workable. So first is concrete footings and steps. And the radial truss, these are the ones that are going along the 15-degree lines, and the stair supports. The lateral trusses are essentially the ring structure. So here are the lateral truss A and B. And then the next radial truss. And then lateral truss C, and then the next radial truss. Stairs being added there, and then the next steps until you reach the top, and the lateral truss is filling it in. Here you can begin to see the articulation of how the different finished surfaces are treated. So the perforated panels indicated here are the non-accessible, non-walkable surfaces. And then the boardwalk and guardrails, so there is a separation between what people can climb onto and what people can't. And then the planters also work as a natural barrier as well as providing landscape to the project. One of the tricky thing about this first iteration was there is a blunt endpoint that's bound by the site boundary. And this open-ended lookout point became a problem in terms of how to truly brace that area. And here was the initial radial truss profile section. And as you can see, the first walk path is at elevation 9 feet, and the second walk path is at 16 feet, 6 inches. And this is the initial sketch of the mentor, really thinking about what are the structural efficiencies that can be thought about, also really thinking about the modules. There was this initial hope that I could get rid of the vertical posts, but unfortunately that didn't quite work out. It ended up being required to really work with the modularity and also the structural stability. Thinking a little further on the materials, first, the architecturally exposed structural steel, AESS, being used widely, especially in my past work experience working in transportation, and wanted to make sure that we could make this buildable and also cost efficient. So thinking about the different category matrix, so AESS2 being less visible elements and AESS3 being more visible and proximate elements. Also thinking in terms of the finished surfaces and how it could be sustainable material that could give this airy feeling on their side, and also stiff and durable enough for people to walk on and weather. So here, the zinc non-walkable surfaces are used as a way to patina over time that goes from this light warm blue into sort of more matte gray over time. And you can see the magnified freckles that you can see there. And also for the decking areas, it will be modified wood decking that would patina over time in a similar color, turning from brownish color into something that becomes more grayish tone. So with the comments from the mentor, the next step was really figuring out this idea of lattice work as a refined structure. So another series here. So first here, the difference is really introducing the vertical modules here at the very beginning. And then module 1, now this is the truss members and also a space frame to really, give a little more stiffness to the overall structure without overshadowing the underside. And these become almost like a lattice work that is very light and airy. Second module going up. Third module, fourth module. And then what was added as part of the sketches is the top ring to add more stiffening at the top, and also stairs A and B gets inserted here. Here, one of the main ideas was that the truss had to be angled to be more efficient and constructible. So these are what's called step plates, which are essentially thin plates that are welded onto the truss member. Really begin to articulate the step form of the project. And then finished surfaces going on, so zinc panels, deck and rail, and the planters. Here you can see the resolution of the open-end lookout point where the linear horizontal bracing is attached across the whole cut of the site with vertical supports. And here's the revised truss profile in section. So this is cutting exactly where the bottom, the concrete, the seat area, and then the 2 tiers of the work surfaces. And then this is through stair type B. You can see connecting from the bottom walkway to top walkway. And then through the stair type A, connecting from ground to the first walkway. And here's through the entry opening where one can enter into this ring structure. So the main idea and goal for the project was really to provide a space to gather, pause, and connect. And articulating the typical module here in more detail. On the left, you see the scaffold, the lattice work of the structure that's formed by the vertical members, the trusses, and the space frame that fit in between the two trusses. On the right, you see the articulation of the finished layers on top of the structure. So this is from ground to first tier deck. You're beginning to see the vertical supports, and you'll notice the circular areas where it's noted as concealed bolt zone. So these are the questions that we had on where to use the welded connections versus where to use concealed bolt connections. And the discussion that we've had with the mentor is that welded connection would be perfectly fine, but perhaps for less visible and less proximate areas, and concealed bolt connections where one could actually touch and see, and would be a little bit better finish in those areas. As you can see, the trusses are made of 3 inches by 3 inch HSS, top and bottom cords, with a 2 inch in diameter HSS truss webs. And the space frame, 1 inch in diameter, that's shop welded as a module that gets shipped. And as you can see here, the railing at 3'6" height provides a nice protection from a walkway into the other inside of the ring structure. And you see that the articulation of 1/2 inch thick by 3 inch wide flat bar that's bent and shop welded top cord of the truss to create these stepped structure. And here you see 1 inch thick perforated zinc panel steps for the stair, and similar for the non-walkable surfaces. And for the planters, high and low planters that are made out of zinc as well, that are set to a guardrail height to provide a natural barrier. And 1 inch thick modified wood deck on the walking surfaces. Here's a second tier deck from the first stair to second stair. Similar ideas of the vertical structures, the truss and the space frame in between. Also noting here the concealed bolt zones versus the welded zones. And the articulation of the non-walkable surface versus the walkable surface in this diagram as well. This is the topmost point of the structure, the top ring and termination point. So each step is about 18 inches high and 3 feet deep. So we are adding 8 inches by 18 inches wide flange top anchor ring to give a little more stiffness to the overall structure. And that gets mounted to the truss members with the web, the same system of the space frame in between. And you see here the same idea of the stepped flat bar that are bent and shop welded top cord of the truss. And at this point, it's really high up, about 35 feet or so. So all of these will be treated as non-walkable surface. Really main goal of providing solo shading finished surface. That is about 3/4 of an inch to 1 inch thick perforated zinc panels here. This is the updated view of what that space would look like. Although we couldn't quite figure out how to do without the vertical structures, because the members are really thin, and because it also works with the overall lattice work-like structure, it doesn't seem as overbearing as the first phase submission here. Here, the idea of the pause, the reflection with the landscape and the structure, and also connecting these ramps that connect from the ground up to the second tier ring and the first tier ring from the other side. And this is a view of the open end lookout point and elevation. And that can be inhabited in multiple ways, whether you're under the ring, on top of the ring, and connected to the other rings. Thank you.
Thank you, June. So let's go ahead and turn it over to jury commentary with Pascal first.
Hi, again, nice seeing you again. Congratulations on being a finalist. I really appreciated seeing the evolution of the project and the exploration and really speaking to the components and how it would come together. I know that was one of our strong kind of recommendations the last time we talked. I think, I don't know, towards the end, there was a slide that you said that there's a ramp, and I didn't understand how that connected or worked or integrated into what you had shown here. And, you know, staying a consistent with brand, that was going to be my number one comment, which is about accessibility and access, and not that it should be a completely separate thing, but ways of integrating it. And from the rendering that you showed, it seemed like it's a ramp that kind of connects to it. And I wonder if there was a way of leveraging the circular components as integrating it so that it didn't they didn't feel separate, but really more integrated into the design so that people can explore both components. I think would be powerful. As well as was interested to hear the lighting strategy in terms of how the lighting was integrated and the kind of ways that the project could be utilized in terms of the longevity in the day and night. And then as well as with your site plan, you had kind of shown a series of articulations of kind of spaces. And I just, because I wasn't sure whether what you were showing was a typical typology of the structural infrastructure, and then it would be addressed in different scales, or if all that integrated only into one building. So I would say thank you so much for really deep diving and getting into the structure components. I appreciate that we started to really strategize with your mentor of ways of handling the vertical component where it wasn't so obtrusive in the space and really allowed for more gathering, right? More gathering, more pausing. But again, just really creating an experience where everyone is welcomed and appreciated and be part of a similar experience rather than having their own kind of separate entrance, but really being integrated to the way the design and the project functions. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you, Bob.
Yes. Hi, June. Nice to see you again. First, right out of the gate, I love the amount of additional thought and rigor and effort that you put into your project, especially to see how it's continued to evolve from the first kind of work session that we had. And I also think that a special congrats to the mentor that you worked with. The amount of collaboration that was apparent in your project was really, really rewarding to see. You know, I think the strength of this project is that it feels truly like a destination location. I mean, it seems like a place that I would want to go and experience, which is kind of the hallmark starting point for any kind of one of these public amenity type spaces. The variety of spaces that your project created and the opportunity for like a really huge array of community programming is something that I personally really appreciated that kind of drove a lot of the spaces and the solutions that you came up with. I also like to say I appreciated the addition of the visioning and inspiration images that you added to this presentation this time around. It helped me kind of understand a little bit more about what your goal was. So congratulations on that. And the, you know, the kind of the touch point we had at the beginning, the actual construction, the actual parts, the rigor and the logic that you put in, I think it really did make a difference to how I interpreted your project. You know, the first time we looked at it, I go, well, how's that going to work? And how's that going to work? And this seems dangerous. And you addressed all those comments. So, I mean, the growth that you experienced from the previous presentation, this one was really remarkable. And, you know, one of the other congratulations I think I should add to you is that the additional information on the material selection and the variety of finishes that you work, I think really adds kind of a dynamic experience to your project that would show how it would grow and change and evolve over time. Um, which is something that I will admit that I hadn't spent much time thinking about it last time we looked at your project and we judged it in the initial round. But I think about the experience of the different people and what they would have as a, like what this zinc would look like over time and how big plate looks and how that would change and the mill finish. And I mean, it just, your project really took some major steps forward. And I just think that you deserve all the credit in the world for the amount of work that you clearly put into your project. So thank you so much for what you've done. Really great job.
Thank you, Bob.
Great work. Thanks, Bob. Robert.
June, excellent presentation. I see a rising star here. As we mentioned in the first round, 50% of your job is selling your projects to clients and the public and community and so forth. And you've done a great job here with that. I appreciated the effort you and your mentor made to make the structural posts much less noticeable and making them much more integrated into the design. That bothered me in the first round, and I think you've pretty much eliminated that problem. So that's a big plus in my view. And finally, this is a beautiful structure, and the concept of it, I could see, not the exact, we wouldn't want to take this and just dump it anyplace else. It's designed for this space in San Jose, but the concepts here could be applied to so many other possibilities around, particularly in the Southwest and in the warmer climates and the drier climates. So I think you've got something here that could be reproduced in some form around the country. And I think that too is, it's not just a one-off, it's got some possibilities with legs on it. So well done, congratulations.
Thank you, Robert.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Good stuff. So I just had my second cup of coffee. Now I think we're really revved up now, right? So let's go ahead and stop the share screen, June, if you will, and then we'll turn it over to our next but not least presenter. So Yiming.
Yes. Can you see the title of the project?
Yes.
Yes, so it's an honor to present the Valley project on behalf of our team today. During the second phase, I partnered with my colleague Matt Kansu to collaborate in this effort, and his bio you can check out on the competition website. Before I delve into our progress in the past 2 months, I'd like to thank the jury members for our discussion in early February, which really set the path for the development. Thanks to Alex and Kimberly for a productive skill session where we look at structural system in detail. And also late February, we also presented the progress to a group of architects from Richmond AIA chapter who provided very valuable feedback from a local standpoint. Overall, it's a very rewarding experience in the past 2 months to play with our creativity in collaboration with the best minds around. The project is located in Richmond, the capital city of Virginia. We chose this site because it's the closest urban destination to where we are based here in Charlottesville. The city of Richmond plans to be a more welcoming, inclusive, diverse, innovative, and equitable city of thriving neighborhoods according to its recently published master plan, and the Valley project seeks to complement this goal. The site is located at the Belt Center neighborhood, a node designated as a priority area for development in the master plan, aiming for growth in residents, jobs, commercial activities over the next 20 years, up to the city's 300th birthday. At the intersection of a major commercial corridor and a boulevard, this design creates a much needed walkable, human-scale environment in place of the sprawling car-centric expanse. These interventions I'm going to show today will set the stage for this area to evolve into a multimodal transportation hub. The site itself sits within a commercial zone serving a large residential neighborhood. The demographic of the residents is largely African American, and 40% of which are at or around poverty level. The project's program is determined to respond to this context with the aim of creating a hub for commercial activities, business opportunities, and civic gatherings. Most importantly, we set our main goals in the beginning to have all programs and features to be developed around these points, which are innovation, sustainability, equity, and community impact. During the design, we always come back to these to check if we meet the initial concept. And hopefully, in the end of the presentation, we can proudly say we achieved these goals. Currently, the site is an underutilized strip mall with a huge surface parking lot. The redevelopment will maintain a relatively open landscape, with the center of the site being a public plaza as a medium for expression, protest, and criticism. In recent years, we've seen people across the country demanding change, from the Black Lives Matter movement to stop Asian hate protests. In times like these, an open and accessible urban plaza is a powerful tool for the people to rally support for issues, voice demands, and exchange ideas. This project uses this fundamental need for collective space as an initial concept and develops programs and forms around it. Toward the street front are pavilions that act as gateways, while the other side is an indoor marketplace. The triangular forms on both sides emerge from the ground in the middle and open up to the neighborhoods beyond. Just like a valley in nature, we made full use of this form and geometry to integrate sustainable features. Large north-facing surfaces have skylights to harvest daylight into the market, while south-facing surfaces have BIPV for solar power generation. The sloping form makes rainwater collection possible. From the roof, rain is collected through the major columns into the building, then piped underground to the north and south wet pond areas, where it is featured as a landscape amenity. Here is an overview of the site development. It is at the crossing of these two major boulevards, with already quite a few public transit stations adjacent to it, which makes this destination easily accessible by the larger community. For the surrounding neighborhoods, we are proposing multiple pedestrian bridges to further encourage a more walkable and bikeable environment, making these amenities more appealing and welcoming to the residents. Within the site, there is a mixed-use indoor marketplace, a group of 3 pavilions as gateways facing the crossing, with a central plaza in between. On both sides of the market, there are wet ponds as landscape features and some sport areas for the neighborhoods to enjoy. Closer to the west edge of the site will be some future development of high-density housing, a prototype we are increasingly seeing in cities at this scale nowadays. Last but not least, there are also destinations for the public art to happen towards the street front. A lot of the programs are not brand new for the city of Richmond. Here are some examples of what the city already has and what have been enjoyed by the community. What we are trying to do here is proposing a mixed-use, well-designed urban hub that fit into the site to support the surrounding neighborhoods. Since this is a huge site, our effort tailored down to these 2 buildings shown here, the pavilion and market. Richmond is a vibrant southern city with a rich history of industry and transportation, the remnants of which enliven the character of the urban environment today and makes building in steel a natural fit into the context. The main structure for the market and pavilion is deep plate steel as columns and girders, exposed in the interior as a unique architectural expression to celebrate the use of steel. Here is a breakdown of the detailed program of each building. The indoor market has market stalls, food court, flexible event space, as well as an auditorium cantilevered in space. Although it's called market, it's actually a mixed-use space itself. The 3 pavilions each function as open free space, incubator offices to foster startups, an urban think tank with technology features built in for presentations and exhibitions. Here are some president images to show the proposed activities. The deep steel plate structure holding up the triangular facade becomes a sculptural element for the interior. On the exterior, the market has insulated metal panel and pockets of skylight or BIPV. For the pavilion's steel sheeting scheme, a similar grid form is used, but scaled down. Now we are going to look at the structure of each building in detail. The pavilion is supported by steel plate columns and beams, with the columns forming an A-shaped frame zigzagging across the whole length. Those horizontal AESS steel plate beams sit on top of those columns to hold up the facade. Certain areas have pockets opened up at various heights to add visual interest and invite daylight in. The support for the glazing and steel sheeting is a lightweight cable truss system to minimize visual impact and maximize transparency. Although this kind of cable truss system is usually used for curtain wall, here we use it on steel sheets as well for a unified interior look. Its point-supported nature also provides flexibility for those various opening heights. The visuals we are aiming for is a clean look from the exterior and the light shines through those peeled openings. You can see from this view the market beyond. These 2 structures in different scales echo to each other in its form and materiality. The market facade is laid out based on the internal structural grid. Glazing happens along the main columns as a signifier of structure to the exterior. The north has laminated safety glass as skylight, and the south has a BIPV to harvest solar energy. When water contacts the skin, it is directed to the base of the valley and then funneled into the 4 rainwater collecting points that are built in the main columns, which are highlighted here in blue. When the building meets the plaza, it has an amphitheater, entry, and side furniture area to take advantage of this gentle slope. Here is a zoom in of one of the columns in the market interior with the typical elements. The main beams and columns are consisted of 2 sheet steel welded together with ribs. We are trying to achieve a deep, flat form to showcase a planar and a sharp look of steel. Following the angle of the facade, this forest of interlocking flat steel members of various height achieves this sculptural look that we aim for, a steel construction and architecture that will be unique and poetic. For the facade on top of the structure, where skylight happens, AESS steel plate beam and tension rods are used to hold the glazing panels. The solid part are insulated metal panels supported on metal decking, which is painted white and exposed in the interior. Rainwater are piped down in those highlighted blue areas, where extra steel is welded to the corners as enclosures. For the south-facing skylight BIPV, to achieve a more unified and playful exterior look, an orange-colored see-through active solar glass is used to match up the surrounding metal panel. This see-through solar panel not only generates power, but also functions as a heat shield, preventing excessive solar heat gain. With the skylights and market stalls built in, this interior space has a palette of black, bronze, and orange to create a vibrant atmosphere, to be enjoyed by many under the canopy of steel. And from the exterior, those skylight pockets will light up in the evening, revealing the main structural logic and elements within. On the building surfaces adjacent to the site, stairs, benches, and planters are built using the same material as the pavilion to create spaces for pause and relax toward the plaza. Looking through the whole process, we tried hard to hit our initial goals by developing unique and innovative structural systems, creating an inviting, open, and accessible urban landscape for everyone to enjoy, incorporating sustainable features to the site and buildings, and developing diverse programs for the community. We hope this project can be a creative test bed for the Richmond 300th Master Plan and encourage the public to think how architecture and design can help to shape a better neighborhood and a city beyond. Thank you.
Great work, Yiming. It's really incredible how everyone's designs have evolved, and the amount of work is really, really quite amazing. So with that, let's go ahead and get started with Pascal on the commentary.
Congratulations again. Thank you again for your beautiful presentation. There has been tremendous kind of development on your design and your project since we last talked. As always, this project has a special place in my heart because it is community focused and creating those spaces and addressing those kind of components and issues, which I think is powerful. You know, one small critique that I did have in terms of your visualizations is that you have noted that it was an 80% African-American community, but in your renderings, that's not the kind of entourage that was represented there. So I would be mindful of just make sure that you represent the community there within those spaces. I also truly appreciated the fact that you actually did the community engagement and had meetings with the local Richmond community to get a sense of their point of view on the project, because community engagement requires discussions and relationships and collaborations with them. So I thought that was huge. And I really want to take the moment to applaud that part of your process. And it clearly really informed your design and created some important moments of innovation. I think this was the first time we really got to see a beautifully articulated interior, to see the type of spaces that were kind of created by that development with you and your mentors, and how the structure would be kind of come together and those components would merge. I appreciated the different materials and the sustainability lens that you brought to the project as well. And I also, lastly, and I know you talked about it briefly in the beginning in terms of how the project is sited, but also the point of making sure that is it extended bridges to really braid in the local community to have access to the project and the site. It's something that I also think is really powerful and important to echo and emphasize. So again, I really appreciate this community really focused project that is a program for the community to leverage, to learn, to gather, to activate. I love that you use the community in your design process and you thought about it through from the details out to the kind of master plan components. Congratulations again.
Thank you.
Thank you, Pascal. Bob.
Ming, nice to see you again.
Hello.
Really, Pascal stole like all my thunder. So I do.
The joys of going first. The joys of going first.
So, but I'll touch down on a few of the things that I just went, wow, that was really great. One was I super loved hearing that you did engage the actual community in your design process. I think that was really smart, and I think that is like one tool in the architect's quiver that is underutilized, and that is just like, hey, we're doing this for you. What do you think about it? So that was amazing that you did that. So major tip of the cat on that. The other thing, and I remember when I first saw this project, the thing that really got me is I went, the scale of this project is at the center of what makes it successful, right? And you talked about community and all these kind of great things. And we wanted to say, all right, I want to see it. I want to see, like, why would I want to go there? How can I make it work? And as your project has evolved, I got to tell you, it has turned into, like, I can't tell you how much, like right now, I want to be inside your structure, looking it up at the way that you figured out with your mentor, how to build the interiors. It would be like a giant Richard Serra sculpture. Like, just the monumentality of the underside of that, I think would just be staggering to be a part of. And I think that people would want to go. And I think that the idea that you're trying to engage the community, this is exactly the type of space that I think that would draw people in. I like the fact that you took some of our feedback and, like, all right, if we're going to create these spaces, it's not just these point touches, like it's not just this food market, it's not just this plaza, but it's like, how can we create community space that starts to feed with one another? And the singular act that I think you did that just cemented the role that this development, where it's located in the city, at the hub of where it is and the community that's surrounded by, is the fact that you extended your project into those surrounding neighborhoods. It's such a big, no pun intended, bridge building move to make, to pull people into the space that I went, you nailed it. You absolutely, like, you went from like a good project to like a great project over the last 2 months. And so super amazing, hats off to you. I'm really proud of what you accomplished. So congratulations.
Thank you. I think all the developments are, our meeting with three of you, I think it really helps to set the path. Like, you encourage us to talk to the community and encourage me to always go back to those four points. So I think it's very important during the design phase to have these stones and build upon that. Never forget the initial idea.
Wonderful job. Yes, thank you. All right, follow that, Robert.
Yeah, right. Thanks a lot, guys. Well, I'll speak to it from a city planning point of view, because that's the only thing I have any kind of perspective on here. And this is a great civic project. It's really, I could see this as a magnet, as an incubator, as a stimulus point, as a catalyst. All sorts of good things could come out of this. It would be a fun place to visit. You engage the community beautifully, and it would be very exciting as a civic venture to have something like this in Richmond. It like the other two judges, I think it would be a wonderful place to visit, bring your family and enjoy a time at this space. And I think it could be a great stimulus for the city of Richmond. And if I were on the plan commission or the city council, I would be saying, how do we get this thing going? This is something that we need. Let's do it. So
thank you. I find a chance to speak to them.
Well, you get my vote. All right. Congratulations. Well done, Yiming.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Yes, I think we plan to share this presentation with the architects, with the community with enrichment after this presentation, because they do give a lot of good feedback. So I think it's good for them to see the final product.
Great. So perfect. I love all of the commentary there. So Yiming, if you could do us a favor and just stop your screen share.
Sure.
We've arrived to speaking about engagement, an important part of the event today, which is the audience poll. So let me just go ahead and bring up my screen here. Share screen on my end. So what we're doing now is, I lost my, here we go. So what we're going to do now is invite the public to go ahead and through the YouTube chat feature to vote for their favorite proposal. And we're going to give the jury just a minute to sort of gauge what that looks like. They won't remain for the entire duration of the voting. What we'll do is we'll send them off to a private VIP room to deliberate on the results, and then they'll come back to the open lobby and either announce what the results are, or will tell us that they need more time. So they have 5 minutes. They can either use all of the 5 minutes or not use all of the 5 minutes. It truly is at their discretion. So Zach, who is my colleague here, is going to help me with the technical side of it. Zach, if you could go ahead and launch the live YouTube polling and show us how that looks. Let me see if Zach is on.
Alex, you need to stop sharing your screen for me.
Got you. So again, the way this is going to work is through the YouTube chat feature, you will see a link pop up. And Zach, if I'm missing a piece, just chime in and let me know.
No, the link should be live in the chat.
So how do we actually select it on YouTube?
It should be in the chat box. Is it not showing up?
So let's do this. Let's go ahead and just move on for the sake of time. It's ultimately up to the jury anyhow. So let's move them to the deliberation room, and then we'll continue to figure this out on our end here. Okay, looks like our jury is gone.
Yeah, they are all in the room. My apologies. The link isn't coming through in the YouTube chat. I'm not sure why.
I just realized I shared the wrong screen just now. Did I?
Did we lose someone else? So right now the jury is deliberating. So we'll just give them some time to come back with the announcements. Zach, if we can manage this, that's fine. We'll just make do. These things happen. So let's go ahead and just make this a little bit more conversational. If we could get that figured out, that's great. So I guess a big thank you to all of you. I mean, I know I sat through some of the design process, and I couldn't be more thankful to all of you, Hunter, Yiming, June. You guys are amazing. You put together something really spectacular and unexpected. And I think a lot of us did what I thought would happen, which is our jaws dropped at the end to see the evolution from the very beginning to the end, and to see that really fantastic collaboration between our fabricators' expertise to bring that into your realm and really collide to derive something truly phenomenal. All of the projects were uniquely different, so I'm curious to see what the jury, how they're going to decide. I would not want to be in their shoes right now to figure out how this is going to turn out. But as they come back and get prepped with their announcement, I do want to tell everyone who's viewing us through YouTube that we will have a second runner-up, a first runner-up, and then the Forge 2021 Forge Prize recipient. That individual will also be presenting at the 2021 NASCC Virtual Steel Conference, which happens beginning April 12th. So we do have not only a wonderful slate of sessions for architects at the Architecture and Conference Steel session, but also the general NASCC conference, which has all kinds of really exciting sessions that we get to take from. So I know that we had some maybe comments that we'd like to share. If either any one of you, Hunter, Yiming, or June, would like to speak on what your experience has been as we wait for the deliberation to wrap up, please go ahead and chime in.
Ladies first.
I can definitely start. I mean, I think, what I realized in phase 2 was because the site that I was working with was so vast and so big that I had to be very strategic in terms of, choosing one as, something that could be replicated and populated as multiple things on site. And, working with Jeff was, I couldn't have done it without you, Jeff, because when I sent off the first iterations of, how I imagined the modularity of the structure, Jeff overlaid his sketches, and really we begin to think about not only about the efficiency and constructability, but making sure that we can maintain the design sensibility of this light airiness. And I think, and then going back to the drawing board and introducing this whole new idea of like, how do we make the space framework within this, and how do we begin to integrate that? I think that process really changed the project and in for the better way, and it really now feels like it's touching the ground really lightly and able to provide a space for the community as well.
Thank you.
What's the question again?
Just kind of give us a little bit of an insight of your experience, how
the whole process
like for you. Yes,
I see. So I think this is a very unique process because if you see my initial phase 1 design board, it's really very, very simple, almost a drawing created by Illustrator, a very 2D graphic thing. But I think it's a great opportunity to have this chance to develop in the 2 months to this really look like a real project. The feeling feels like going back to school and doing a 1 semester studio. And I think with the 5 year or 6 years working experience, I think I did better than what I did before.
Thank you, Yiming. That it was, from the beginning, as I said, I remember the sort of the initial deliberations and the commentary by the jury, and I think you guys all did a fantastic job with picking those up and incorporating those comments into the presentation. So fantastic. Hunter.
Yeah, it was a fantastic process. I think after that first submittal, as crazy as this might sound, I thought I wasn't pushing it far enough. If you're going to print something, take advantage of the complexities that it can produce, right? So that was really kind of a focus on the way to 2, but also Glenn gave me some great feedback. I had an opportunity to talk with the guys at MX3D 2 Island has great structural engineers and construction engineers. So between Glenn, them, and MX3D, there was a lot of great input. And that idea to mix stainless with carbon in one solid wall really came from Glenn's kind of input. And he showed me like this explosive forming where you explode stainless into carbon to get that into one layer. And so it got me thinking, well, if you're going to weld it with a 3D printer, you can actually accomplish that and produce something that's more durable and more cost effective. So it was just a pleasure to work with real professionals on this.
Thank you, Hunter. And speaking of real professionals, we have one more left here. Well, everyone's a real professional, but as far as the steel industry, Jeff, if you could chime in on what it was like for you, and maybe even some moments of learning from your architect that you work from. I think it goes both ways, so we would be interested to see how you feel about it.
Yeah, sure. It was really interesting to interface with June. I mean the creativity of she has and the other folks, and the other contestants is amazing for us to be, more the production side of things. And so I thought she was really open to discussing ideas and trying to, I think it's an important thing that to have an economical solution to these kind of projects so that, everybody wins in those cases.
Oh, it looks like thanks, Jeff. It looks like we're about to have some breaking news here as our I'm not sure if our jury was abruptly summoned back, but we have you back here, and we'll see how this goes. Let's turn it over to the official messenger.
So fun fact, didn't know I was the official messenger till about 10 seconds ago. So forgive me here. Wanted to say that it was a fun, lively debate. A lot of kind of discussion and really in awe of all the evolutions of the projects. Really, it was a very, very difficult decision across the board in terms of trying to allocate the different tiers, but at the end we were all in consensus, and so the second place runner-up, right, if I got the terminology correctly, we are saying would be June with Signal Park. Congratulations again. We really loved and appreciated the evolution, the kit of parts, the techniques, the surfaces, and all that you've done to evolve the project. Really should be proud. We're really awesome and proud of all the evolution that you've done there. And
we want to see it built and come visit it, June, when it's done. Okay.
Absolutely. First place runner-up, or first runner-up, that's the right terminology, I hope, is, drum roll, the Valley. And so again, congratulations to the team with all that you've developed for your project. Really haven't seen steel articulated and allocated the way you have with the project. Really the powerfulness of the spaces, and really the community engagement was a really powerful component. So we applaud you there. And then of course, first place runner-up, or first place obviously, would be Hunter for your incredible bridge in San Diego and all the evolutions that were there. And you really convinced us that you can actually help solve some of the infrastructure issues that is plaguing our nation. And so we're really inspired and excited to see this project come to fruition. I don't think any of us has a doubt in our mind that it's going to come together and be able to be a catalyst for us throughout the country. Thank you everyone so much for your time.
Congratulations.
And thank you, judges.
And mentors. Mentors did a great job.
100%.
And thank you for your feedback too.
Welcome.
So with that, this concludes the 2021 Forge Prize live presentations. We have selected all wonderful, wonderful talent today and have hopefully shared a dose of inspiration for what the future of architecture and steel looks like. So thanks, a big kudos and a big thanks and shout out to Pascal, Robert, and Bob for joining us today and giving us their insights. Big thanks for all of the hard work of our industry steel mentors that really pitched in their expertise. And of course, for all of the hard work that you guys did, June, Yiming, and Hunter, Couldn't be more blessed to have been part of this. So stay tuned for the official, I guess this is the official announcement, but forthcoming news for the 2022 Forge Prize, and then the presentation of our 2020 Forge Prize grand prize winner for a session at the NASCC Architecture and Steel Conference. Thank you so much, and have a great rest of your day.
Thank you, everyone.